My boyfriend has a tiny penis and am hiding my disappointment. I 19F have been seeing Max 20 meters for a few months now. We have so much in common and he is so good to me. I like him a lot and I love spending time with him, but there's a bit of a problem sexually. I first saw his penis a few weeks ago and it was roughly 3 inches fully hard. I was so disappointed but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, like maybe it didn't really matter. We had sex for the first time a few days ago. I barely felt anything. I have been with for guys before all at least 5 inches, so I know the difference. I'm very sad because I don't really like guys going down on me. I just like fingering and piv most, so my sex life with him is going to suck. I don't want to break up with him though, as he is so perfect in other ways. I hate that there's nothing that can fix this though. I also obviously can't tell him how I feel about his penis, and I would never tell my friends or anything. So I have no one else to talk to about this except for you all on here. I could really see myself with him long term. It's just unfortunate that good sex won't be a part of that for me. I can actually have an orgasm, never have in my life even by myself thanks antidepressants, but I still enjoy normal sex. Edit. I was never planning on telling him that I think it's small. You don't need to harp on that. I'm young, not a socially oblivious idiot. Stories number 2. Aita. My parents are housing a girl during her university and they treat her better than they ever treated me. I am adopted when I was 10 years old. Growing up I had an okay relationship with my mother, but it came to head when my dad lived overseas for work and I was living with my parents during university. My mom and I did not get along as she was very controlling. When I was 23 she still made decisions about what I wore, how I cut my hair, and would look through my garages. When Ashley moved out for grad school I had to seek a lot of therapy trying to find myself and being my own person, and making my own decisions, as I had never had the opportunity before. Now I am in my late 20s and I live alone in the same city as my parents, and our relationship is good. I see them once or twice every few weeks. About August last year my dad had a business trip to Kenya and my mom went with him. And they met this family who couldn't afford to send their second daughter to an international university. So my parents offered to let her live in their spare room so that the family can afford to send their daughter to school. I thought this was very nice, and when she came I introduced her to everything. I even gave her my spare winter coats that didn't fit me anymore, and my winter clothes that I no longer use because she was not used to the cold weather. But small things started to bother me. Like my dad would start to call her his second daughter. She would come to family functions. When my parents came back from vacation they bought her all the souvenirs while I got a bar of soap and lotion. The last part that bothered me was when my grandfather passed away and the girl sat with the rest of the family in the front row. Mind you, she has met my grandfather in passing maybe twice. I was his only grandchild. Her sitting at the front row meant there was no space for my aunt, uncle from my mom's side because she took that space. They would make foo when my grandfather was ill and consistently visited him in his nursing home. So they were much closer, and I really wanted to sit with them and grieve with them. I don't know if I'm just jealous, maybe that's a big part of it, but my heart hurts whenever I see her interacting with my mom, and wish that my mother had treated me with the same kindness that she was treating that girl. I feel like the outsider when I come over to family dinner and my mom constantly gushes over her. I feel like she was the daughter that my mom had always wanted. To protect myself I limit my contact with them and come over less. I just want to know whether my feelings are justified. Stories number 3. Grandpa's alpaca fetish. So we are all sitting around the table on Christmas Eve pre-COVID. My elderly father, 75, is not at all technically inclined. He's fiddling around with his phone trying to figure something out. My teenage son, 17, offers to help him out with whatever he's doing. Fantastic then, I don't have to, and the kid is good with electronics. So we're all sitting around shooting the shit and nobody's paying any attention to what my son is doing with the phone. About 45 minutes goes by and he hands Grandpa's phone back to him. He's got it all fixed up. As an added bonus, he changed Grandpa's screensaver home screen and every single contact on his contact list. 2 different pictures of alpacas. To this day he hasn't changed them back and giggles every time his phone rings. Oh, and the gifts my son gets are now all alpaca related. Socks, stuffies, sweaters, you name it. Stories number 4. My boyfriend has a tiny penis and I'm hiding my disappointment. I 19F have been seeing Max 20 meters for a few months now. We have so much in common, and he is so good to me. I like him a lot and I love spending time with him, but there's a bit of a problem sexually. I first saw his penis a few weeks ago and it was roughly 3 inches fully hard. I was so disappointed but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, like maybe it didn't really matter. We had sex for the first time a few days ago. I barely felt anything. I have been with for guys before all at least 5 inches, so I know the difference. I'm very sad because I don't really like guys going down on me. I just like fingering and piv most, so my sex life with him is going to suck. I don't want to break up with him though, as he is so perfect in other ways. I hate that there's nothing that can fix this though. I also obviously can't tell him how I feel about his penis, and I would never tell my friends or anything. So I have no one else to talk to about this except for you all on here. I could really see myself with him long term. It's just unfortunate that good sex won't be a part of that for me. I can actually have an orgasm, never have in my life, even by myself thanks antidepressants, but I still enjoy normal sex. Edit. I was never planning on telling him that I think it's small. You don't need to harp on that. I'm young, not a socially oblivious idiot. Stories number 5. Aita for making my nephew eat food he ruined. Not the a hole. He 1M is the child of my friend. I refer to him as my nephew because he calls me auntie. He was at my house and I made some hummus, also known as hummus. He asked if he could put some Worcestershire sauce on his. I asked if that's something Hayes had on it before he replied no. I offered to give him a small portion to try it first. He insisted he likes it and wants it. I told him that in that case, even if he didn't like it, I expected him to eat it all. Surprise, Worcestershire sauce and hummus is not a winning combination. He wanted to leave it and have me make him something else. I reminded him that I expected him to eat it after he was so insistent on having it. I conceded I couldn't force him to eat it, but I wouldn't be making something else. And now the most horrible aunt ever, and my friend is angry that I let her son starve. This was lunchtime. She was picking him up at 5:30 p.m. to return home. He wasn't going to waste away. I don't honestly think I'm wrong here, but maybe I am. Edit. I'm advised to add the following that I replied to a question. There was also bread and celery and carrot and cucumber sticks and feta cubes. He did eat the bread and feta cubes, so there wasn't no food, just not as much as originally intended. Stories number 6. Lady screaming during sex. I used to live in an apartment building. One night my wife and I could hear some lady screaming louder and louder, faster and faster for about 5 minutes. Took us a minute to realize she was having sex and not in any danger. This happened every night at about the same time for about a week. We would just be laughing because it echoed through the hallways and the back alley. We were sure a lot of people could hear her. After about a week, I ran into my neighbor and asked him if he could hear that woman screaming at night. He said, "Oh yeah, that's me and my girlfriend. I have a 3-inch penis and I make her scream, so I feel better about myself." Funniest shit ever. Stories number 7. My best friend's wife's cat is going to die while I'm watching their house and animals. I'm house sitting for my best friend who is taking his family on a long vacation. They have multiple dogs and a very old cat who had been showing signs of nearing the end. Lack of grooming, meowing a lot, very thin and weak. It's over 20 years old. All of which my friend's wife was there for ever since she was a little girl. Last Saturday, there was a lot of vomit around the house when I came back from work. Ever since, I don't think he has eaten or drank. I notified my friend about it when it happened, and now that the cat is even more lethargic, I talked to him again about what to do. He said we'll see what the morning brings. We had discussed this was a possibility because the lack of grooming and meowing had been going on for a month before I showed up. But I'm just beside myself because I desperately want to help the cat, but I can't. I gave it fresh water from multiple sources, offered it wet food instead of the dry food he normally eats, even trying to gently get him to drink for a straw, using it like a dropper. We live in the rural Midwest, so there aren't any vets open this late for me to take him to, and it's tearing me apart that we have to wait till then because I don't think he's going to make it. I swear I did everything the way they told me to in terms of caring for him, but he's sick and won't let me help him. He's hiding from me now, apparently not pleased with my attempts at the straw, and I just don't know how I'm going to look my friend and his wife in the eye when they come back if he passes. I know how devastated she's going to be knowing that he passed while she was away, and it's just ripping me up inside. Hopefully he makes it through the night and I can get him to the vet first thing in the morning, and they can keep him alive until his family comes back on Sunday. Stories number 8. Aita for telling my mom, I don't want to make my teenage brother's beds. Not the a hole. My brothers never clean their room, they're 17 and 13. My mom told me many times before to clean their room, but I refuse and have discussed with her repeatedly they're old enough to make their own beds, especially my 17-year-old brother. If he can drive and stay out late with his friends, then he can surely make his own bed. Because I refuse and have set a boundary with my mom for this chore, my sister tends to do their beds and clean their room, not because she wants to but because she doesn't want my mom to get angry. Both of my parents had anger issues and always yell, which is something for another time. Anyways, today my sister chose not to, and so my mom asked me to make their beds. She yelled at me and told me, "When I tell you to do something you do it," and compares me making their beds to other chores, but that's not the same thing. I do whatever chore she tells me, but I have set a boundary with her for making my brother's beds, and I repeated this to her. She left me alone, but after lunch in the afternoon, she made me go to my brother's room, so I only made my 13-year-old brother's bed and left. I'm probably going to get my phone taken away today. She finds out I didn't make the other bed, or she'll just sigh and ignore it. I'm so sick of living like this. My parents wonder why my brothers are careless, and it's because they were never disciplined or given chores to learn to be responsible. Edit. She just ignore. I didn't expect to receive a lot of comments, it's a bit overwhelming reading them, although I share the same sentiment. Sorry if I don't respond, I got some strategies here so I'll update if things change. Stories number 9. Dads bragging about their sons, but they're actually gay. So for men are talking about how successful their sons are. So the first said, my son owns a car dealership, and he just gave his friend a Ferrari. The second man said, my son owns an airline, and he just gave his friend a private jet. The third said, my son owns a kingdom, and he just gave his friend a castle. Then they asked a fourth man if his son was rich, and he said, actually no, he's gay and he gets his stuff from his boyfriends. The three then asked if he was ashamed of his son, and he said no, actually he just got a free Ferrari, private jet, and castle from his boyfriends. Stories number 10. My parents are divorcing and I don't know what to do. I currently live in South Florida as an 18-year-old high school graduate, and I'm supposed to be getting my A degree by the end of this coming fall semester. I've recently had to deal with something that's been a pretty hard thing to deal with every time I come home. My mom and dad are finally divorcing. To be honest, it always felt like it might happen with how much they fought and disagreed on so many things. I've been wanting to leave them for a while, ever since I turned 18, because I've wanted to be independent, but I just haven't had the money to, since every place around my current job and college, which is where I have my job, is way too expensive for me to afford every month with my current $15 per hour part-time job. I also don't have many friends or all mostly online, so although I might want to live with one of them, it might require a lot of driving. And the worst part is just the fear of not knowing what I can or should do. This divorce has been going on for a while now, and it feels like it's not stopping until a while, but I don't want to have to keep worrying about things happening in the house like this whenever I have to go back. Last night, this June 3rd, they had an awful fight, and me and my mom were scared my dad would physically harm at some point. She was ready to call 911, and my dad said he wanted to douse her in fire and kill her. He's mad because he thinks she's legally stealing money from him, and he doesn't care about my mom at all. I myself know that I'm legally 18 and can just move out and do whatever I want. The problem is that I just don't know what I could do. I've researched living out in my car on my own, maybe living in a homeless shelter. But besides that, I really don't know what I can do, and I'm scared to do those things. I have to abandon my room in my house for living outside, but I want it to be a somewhat safe and normal thing. I took some audio recordings of their bad fight yesterday. I wanted to send a few of them here so you can see how bad it is, but it looks like I can't send files in here. But now that I have this, I've thought about maybe going to the police, since this really feels like it could be something that would be worth them going into, but I'm just scared of not knowing what would happen if I picked up the phone to call them. Stories number 11. Aita for telling my sil she should be ashamed of herself and learn to be a mature adult. Not the a hole. My brother had 2 kids with his ex. By the time he was 21, he stuck around for a couple of years, but when they broke up, he left the kids too. He paid no child support, made no effort to keep in touch with the kids, did not check if they were okay, nothing. The rest of my family let the relationship drop to but I 38 meters was the exception. I stayed part of my niece and nephew's lives. I still have a good relationship with them today, and they're close to my kids. 5 years ago my brother got married, and now he's expecting baby 3 with his wife. After settling into family life he started to think more about his oldest two and he made the decision to reach out to them. He was met with silence initially and then, after speaking to his ex he got a brief message from his kids that they were still mad and hurt that he left. They had contact for about a month and it was sporadic. He asked if they could meet in person and the kids said no, but they said they would do a video call with him one time and that was it. This call happened 2.5 months into their reconciliation at some point. During this he mentioned wanting them to meet his wife and other kids. They told him that was not going to happen and they didn't want to reconcile with him. My brother was surprised. He had thought that them opening up to him about being angry and hurt was a sign that they were willing to work through that. They told him it would be one thing if he hadn't settled down and started a family all over again, but the fact he did that and then reached out to them was too much for them, and they want nothing to do with the family he created now. This led to a back and forth, where he said they have younger siblings and they told him very clearly they will never acknowledge or accept them as siblings and they will never accept him as their dad and he needs to move on. I spoke to my niece and nephew after the call. They reached out to me and they said it was good to close that door and to have the decision be their own. They felt like they got closure. My brother wasn't prepared for the outcome, and his wife is furious that my niece and nephew rejected them for existing. She started bad-mouthing the kids at my parents' house in front of all of us. My brother told her to stop, but she told him they should be ashamed of themselves for reacting like spoiled brats who don't get their way and punishing innocent children when they're supposed to be grown adults now. I told Sil she should be ashamed of herself for talking like that about the kids my brother abandoned and didn't give a second thought to until he had settled down with her and their kids. I told her she should learn to be a mature adult and accept that his actions had consequences and this is one of them. Cue her being offended and saying I have no right to speak to her that way and some of my family telling me I should have said nothing. Stories number 12. The time I destroy a stall in the Walmart bathroom. So I'm with my family at Walmart in the Midwest, or at least the areas I've lived in. Walmarts are pretty fucking big. So I'm way in the back where the hunting outdoor supplies are at and I suddenly hear nature's call. Now at the time I didn't know there were employee bathrooms in the back areas of the store. I thought bathrooms were just at the front. So I'm like damn and have to walk to the front from the back. While I'm walking pressure is building and the clock is rapidly nearing zero. I eventually am forced to waddle like a penguin to keep myself from making a mess of the entire store. I ask a kindly older employee, could have been my grandma in terms of age, where the bathroom is. Oh, right over there darling. I thank her and waddle, my desperate sweating ass over to the bathroom. Waddling like I've never waddled before or after I make it to the bathroom. At this point pressure is to the point I could pop the top off of an Abrams and send it into the stratosphere. I disrobe from the waist down and prepare to do my business, bending oh so slightly before I sat. I can't properly describe the sound. Cutush would be the best I can put into words. It was like dynamite in a lake. Slightly deafened I slowly turned back and dear God the sight that I beheld. Everything is covered. I mean covered. The wall behind the toilet, the walls that make up the rest of the stall behind me. Behind the toilet the fucking ceiling is covered and it's just a painting of sorrow. I cleaned myself up. I was ready to fun as best I could and quickly departed the stall. Of course, as luck would have it, a man roughly in his 50s comes into the bathroom. He smiles, greets me, and I greet him before making my way to the door. Behind me I hear holy shit and I run like my ass is on fire to find my family. Oh, that poor Walmart, that poor man, that poor janitor. Stories number 13. My husband lied to me and I'm okay with it. A little dirty, a little wholesome. In fact, I hope he does it again. I've been reading a particular author known for sprinkling in hot sex scenes between the storylines. They aren't particularly dirty, but they're very sensual and I'm enjoying the hell out of her work. Saturday I dug into one of her books and was loving it. I told my husband how much I liked that sex wasn't the main part, but it was well timed and added to the story. My husband doesn't read, he avoids it completely, impossible. But we fooled around Saturday night and he did some specific things I had just read from my book a few hours before. It was very out of the norm and was one of the hottest things we've ever done. I can't stop thinking about it. I asked him later when he snuck a look at my book and he said he hadn't. We argued a bit and I let it go. I'm going to start flagging the best parts so if he wants to sneak a peek at my books in the future he knows where to look, and I just ordered 3 more books from that series. Stories number 14. Aita for making my mom leave a graduation dinner. I 38F planned a graduation dinner for my 38 meters husband due to being a party of 11. I had to schedule the dinner for 4 p.m. My mother showed up at 4:28 p.m. and was not happy as to where she would be sitting on the interior of a booth. The table was half booth half chairs with the booth side only having one side to exit. She proceeded to sit at the table next to us and claimed I'll just sit there. I told her you can't just sit wherever you want without talking to a host, and if she came on time maybe she would have more say as to where she was sitting. She got upset with that, told us to enjoy dinner and stormed out. For additional context, my bill is handicapped and needs to be on an end where his left leg is out, and my mill or sill need to be next to him too. Cut his food also by brother, and GF had to be on the other end as my nephew was in a stroller. Stories number 15.17 again. When I was 17, my girlfriend at the time was finally ready to have sex. I, as one might expect of a 17-year-old, was excited. Neither hell nor high water was going to stand between me and my final destination. I get ready for the night, trim everything up, shower extra well. Unfortunately, there was also an issue. I have a directional disorder that sometimes causes my shit to become large and quite solid while still inside me. I wasn't aware it was a treatable problem and in fact just thought everyone had to deal with the equivalent of anal kidney stones. I bring this up because I had a mighty one which had been loaded into the gun for several days. Let me set the scene. Her parents are away, we have her house to ourselves. She was always a little kinky, so she demands we do it in her parents' bed. I walk into a candle holocaust. She's been working on this all day apparently, and it's as bright as high noon in there, with the lights off, which is good because she proceeds to do a sweet sexy little dance for me. At 16 she was amazing. For those of you who never experienced a female at that age, I pity the fool. Now I'm sitting on the bed watching this dance. I smile and tell her how good she looks. Unfortunately, most of my attention is focused on the dull throbbing from my sphincter and the large amount of intestinal discomfort associated with not dropping duche in days. But somehow I still get hard and we go to town. She starts out on top, then we switch. I bend her over the bed and I even smack her ass, a ballsy move at the time, but she loved it. Due to my built-up distraction, I last for what seems like forever. She can't stop moaning and telling me how good it feels, and then she says what every man wants to hear: I want to make you go in my mouth. I love women. So she goes down on me. She was always average, best in the head department, but at least she try. She pops my out of her mouth long enough to look up at me and say, "Tell me if you like this." Then I feel it. She stuck her finger up my ass. My brain hits the panic switch and every muscle in my entire body locks up tighter than a 3-year-old virgin, but it's too late. I take a massive painful shit all over her parents' comforter. No, you aren't understanding, I mean large, huge. Immense. Take your largest shit and multiple it by 42 and you'll have an idea of what flew out of me. And gents, when I say flew, I don't mean I pooped. I mean projectile, I mean hurricane force, once hitting an umbrella stand. And due to my condition, it comes out as a large dark brown smelly harpoon. I know it hit her, I didn't see it. She ran screaming, oh my god, but I always imagine that due to her position, it hit her right in the chin, or at least the tits. I would like to say I got up to go after her, but I heard the bathroom door shut and I just lied there. The smell hit me after a few seconds. It smelled like someone rolled a cat in SHT and threw it into a tire fire. I looked down and saw to date the largest bowel movement I've ever heard of laying on the bed. Then I noticed the blood, and when I did, I noticed the pain. Apparently the fact that it was so large caused it to rip my ass a little bit. Thought I was bleeding from the inside. This little doctor's trip the next day is what taught me of my condition. There was a small pool of blood where my ass had been, a final reminder of the exact place and moment I lost my virginity. I will treasure this memory for all my days. I grab my shit with my hands and go to the downstairs bathroom. I throw around 1/3 into the toilet and flush, fearing any more will clog it and only add to my already significant woes. I stand there, holding 2/3 of my biggest shit of all time, feeling a trickle of blood flow down my leg, trying to ignore the sharp pain stabbing my rectum. I find myself wishing I had a photo of this. Anyway, I finish flushing my baby, clean off my hands, jam toilet paper between my cheeks, I skipped the band-aid and went upstairs. I could hear my girlfriend sobbing from behind the bathroom door. I decided not to say anything to her and just keep moving. The smell in her parents' room was abysmal. It's like when you take a shit and walk out of the bathroom, you think, hey, not so bad today, but then you walk back into, grab your magazine, and go, holy shit. It was one of those moments. The scene is burned behind my eyelids for all time. My life, my shame. My very first time smelled like a pile of dead babies. I quickly got dressed since the heat from 10,000 candles was making the room feel more like a porta potty. I was aware enough to grab the comforter on my way out and drag it downstairs to their washer. Also the top and bottom sheets, since the blood had leaked on through all the way to mattress. Still no sign of the GF, but at this point, I considered it a blessing. I jammed in the washer with 3 loads worth of detergent and set it on spin, knowing that not even the hand of God would save these linens, let alone tie and snuggles. Then I left. I avoided my GF's calls for days until she came to my house. We had a long talk about what happened, talk being synonymous with breaking up with me because I on her, and it was all over. She promised not to tell a soul, and I don't think she ever did. She was probably as ashamed as I was about the whole deed. But I will always remember this happening as the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me. Stories number 16. I don't like Beyonce. I used to be a fan growing up, but now she really triggers me and I don't like her at all. It all started in the 2010s when I was scrolling through YouTube and found a video exposing Beyonce and how many songs, music video concepts, choreography, song writing, lyrics and production she's stolen from other artists. I was so shocked and disgusted. How can someone be so shameless and unoriginal? And I guess it's one thing to copy a music video concept or whatever, but to take songwriting credits on a song you did not write, to go on stage and talk about what inspired you to write the song you didn't write. It was so shocking and infuriating to me now. Whenever people talk about how she's queen and so amazing, I get so disgusted. She's a fraud. I also hate how her team pays Billboard and other companies to say she's so amazing, or how she's the best female selling star of the 2000s. Honey, Britney Spears dragged you in sales in the 2000s, and so did many other artists like Pink and Christina Aguilera. So who are you paying to make them right that you're the greatest selling female artist of the 2000s? Honey, you are not half as relevant as you are today in the 2000s. So yeah, I despise Beyonce. She's so fraudulent and desperate. Nothing about her is real. She literally got to the top by playing dirty. I hope one day all of this is exposed publicly and she gets cancelled because she truly deserves it. Stories number 17. Aita for excluding my gay adult nephew from my gay social events when he says attending the events is a need for him, not a want. Not the a whole promote. My brother has 2 young adult children, Maisie 19 and Cassidy 18. I am a gay man in my 50s. Both Maisie and Cassidy are very young for their ages. They live out their lives entirely online, and neither of them had any real-life friends. They are both very into fandoms around boy bands. They both have some interest in fashion, which they follow on social media. Roughly 2 years ago, Cassie announced identifying to be a male. As part of this, Cassie changed fashion somewhat to be a kind of goth glam, androgynous look. Cassie has long hair and wears a great deal of makeup, and this did not change after the announcement. But Cassie began adding in a mustache and small goatee, which were applied with makeup. I am part of a very tight-knit group of friends in this city who are all gay men. Cassie never showed much interest in my social life before, but after his announcement he began asking to attend my social events. I told Cassie once he turned 18 he could come. All of my friends are in their 40s and 50s, and most of them are married with kids. We drink wine and talk about our lives, and it's usually very domestic, but it can get raunchy. The first uncomfortable part was that any time there was any reference to sex, Cassie would loudly huff and sigh and at one point rush out of the room. I'm presuming Cassie is not comfortable with sex, but I was not going to babysit him, as he is an adult. Once Cassie had a glass or 2 of wine, he loosened up more, but it got a lot worse. The word F*** started flowing out of Cassie's mouth nonstop. Cassie repeatedly talked about how every aspect of himself proved how he was such a F*** had always been one. Cassie brought up his love of fashion and boy bands as examples of this. This caused a stunned, uncomfortable silence in the room. Each and every one of us in that room besides Cassie has been called that word before by someone who was in the midst of doing terrible things to us or threatening them. Cassie has never been in a position to be called that in any context. Ask Cassie had more when he kept on changing the subject back to his boy bands. We are grown-ups with interesting lads and none of us are interested in boy bands. Anytime the conversation strayed from fashion or boy bands, Cassie hijacked it back as he got more drunk. People started leaving and I was furious because Cassie is apparently terrified of confrontation. I told my brother that Cassie will not be welcome back to any of my events until he grows up more. Apparently Cassie had a meltdown and said that he needed to attend these events to be part of his community and it was a need for him, not a want. My brother is acting like I'm responsible for Cassie's mental health. Am I the asshole? Stories number 18. An Instagram post jokingly teased men and pretended women's skin peel off every time they have their period. This Instagram post featured a woman peeling the skin of her face off, I'm assuming either a face mask of sunburn. And when my partner asked me about it, I jokingly told him yes, it's true. He started doubting me, saying he never saw my skin peel. I told him that obviously her skin was different than mine and that mine simply gets flaky. He went quiet for a minute and slowly nodded, saying it explains a lot, whispered like a lizard. I don't know how to tell him it was a joke anymore.